Carl Jung, Swiss psychiatrist. Born July 26, 1875, died June 6, 1961. Carl Jung's theory about reality is synchronicity, the idea that mind and matter are not separate, but a single unified fabric. It suggests that coincidences are not random accidents, but meaningful connections where our internal psychological states physically mirror external events. Jung proposed that events which seem completely unrelated by cause and effect can be tied together by meaning. He believed that at a fundamental level of reality, the objective material world and the subjective human mind are entangled. As I looked at Carl Jung, some less than admirable elements were presented. I see this as a plus, as in my observation of history and the narrative as presented, the good and positive are dinged and bashed and put down, and the dark, evil, deceptive, and harmful are praised, awarded medals, honors, and often find their face stamped on coins. Have a good week, everyone.
What he found disturbs the comfortable story most people tell themselves about what aging actually is. Because most of us believe aging is simply time passing through the body, we believe wrinkles are years, that gray hair is experience, that the heaviness people carry in their face by the time they reach middle age is just the natural price of living. But Jung's clinical observations pointed towards something entirely different. He believed that a significant portion of what we call aging is not time at all. It is accumulation. It is the weight of everything we refuse to feel, everything we carried for people who never asked us to, every version of ourselves we abandoned to survive, every truth we suppressed to maintain peace in systems that were slowly consuming us. And the moment a person begins releasing that accumulation through genuine psychological awakening, something begins to reverse. Not in the way people imagine, not through some mystical fountain of youth, but through a real measurable shift in how the nervous system operates, how the face holds tension, how the body moves when it is no longer bracing against its own truth, because they have put down something enormous, something most people carry until the very end without realizing they were holding it at all. Certain versions of you were welcomed at the dinner table, praised at school, rewarded in relationships. Other versions, the angry you, the frightened you, the deeply uncertain you, the you that simply wanted to stop performing, those versions were quietly discouraged until they disappeared underground. Jung called what accumulated down there the shadow. Not evil, not dangerous in itself, simply everything the conscious mind refused to own. And while the conscious mind carried on with ordinary life, the shadow grew heavier. Every year of not feeling what needed to be felt added weight. Not metaphorical weight, real, neurological weight. The kind that changes how the muscles in your face hold. The kind that affects the hormonal environment inside your body in ways that accumulate across decades. Jung noticed that his patients who hadn't done this inner work, who were still carrying decades of unprocessed emotional material, carried it visibly. Not always in obvious ways, but in the set of their jaw, in the tension around their eyes, in the slight forward collapse of the shoulders that comes from spending years bracing against an interior world that feels unsafe. Their bodies were doing something extraordinary and exhausting. They were working constantly to contain what had never been processed, to keep the lid on what had never been allowed to surface. And that containment, sustained across years and then decades, leaves marks that no skincare routine touches. Because the marks aren't on the surface. They're structural. They live in the nervous system. They live in the baseline level of cortisol the body maintains when a person is unconsciously at war with themselves. They live in the chronic, low-grade tension that becomes so familiar it stops feeling like tension and simply starts feeling like who you are. This is what most people are carrying by the time they reach their 40s and 50s. Not years, not experiences. compressed, unresolved psychological weight. He believed that it is not the difficulty that ages a person. It is the resistance to difficulty. It is the suppression of what difficulty asks you to feel. The person who moves through genuine spiritual awakening has at some point stopped resisting. They have learned, often through enormous suffering, to feel what is actually there instead of managing what they don't want to be there. And that single shift from resistance to allowance, from suppression to integration, begins releasing the accumulated weight that was written onto the face, into the body, through the nervous system.